Hey, good morning. It's great to see you and really appreciate you being here this morning. My name is Matt Schmidt, Vice President for Institute Advancement, and a pleasure to welcome you to the State of the Institute. As you heard, if you don't mind, just making sure your phones are silenced, that would be great. And we look forward to a wonderful conversation this morning. So it's my pleasure, without further ado, to introduce to you the 19th President of RPI, Martin Schmidt. Marty?
All right, thanks, welcome. Lynn, you heard the message about the silence phone thing? Okay. I'll pay for that later. So welcome. This is the 2023 State of the Institute. It's a talk that I look forward to being able to give every year to you, and we'll be fine-tuning it, and so one of the things I'd certainly appreciate is any feedback on things that I talk too much about, which is most, or things that you wish I had talked to or shared about. So it's been a little more than 15 months since I moved back to this campus with Lynn. Much has happened over that time, but perhaps the most important relative to this reunion has been my chance to meet so many of you. We have an amazing alumni, many of whom are deeply committed to supporting RPI. And frankly, as I experienced in my time in leadership at MIT, as I come to know you better, I find myself excited to see you return to campus and to share thoughts and hopes for our beloved alma mater. So it really feels great to see familiar faces, and I look forward to getting even more familiar faces to get to know. So this morning what I want to do is share with you the state of the Institute. I'm going to try and be succinct so there's time to entertain some questions, only easy ones. I'll start with introductions of some of the newest members of the leadership and then talk about where we are in our strategic planning process. I'll then take you under the hood to discuss some of the things we're doing operationally at RPI, and I'll include a few comments about our finances. I'll then share with you some of the exciting new activities, perhaps you're aware of one of them, that we've initiated, and we'll end with an update on planning for the Bicentennial. But before that, I think I would be remiss if I didn't offer a comment regarding the crisis unfolding in Israel and Gaza as relates to RPI. Our principal goal at RPI has been to make sure we do as much as we can to support those members of our community who are deeply and personally impacted by the crisis. And I'm happy to say that our Vice President of Student Life staff has been working intensely and focusing on that to support our community. So let me now begin with my remarks regarding the state of RPI. And I'll first start by introducing the newest members of the leadership team. I know some of them are here, so I'll ask them to stand as I call their names. So first of all, I want to introduce our new provost, Dr. Rebecca Dorsch. Rebecca is right here. So Rebecca comes to us from Carnegie Mellon University, where she was Dean of the Mellon College of Science, and a faculty member both in the departments of Statistics and Data Science and in the Department of Biological Sciences. 2 months in, and she's already making good moves for us. In addition, you've met Matt Termolin, our Vice President for Institute Advancement. Matt comes to us from Syracuse University, where he was Chief Advancement Officer and Senior Vice President, and prior to Syracuse, spent time at both Northwestern University and the University of Chicago. I don't know if Christy Bowers is here. She's up making sure the football team's ready. Our new Associate Vice President and Director of Athletics, Dr. Christy Bowers, who comes to us from Boston University, where she served, I should say Boston University, where she served as the Senior Associate Athletic Director and Senior Woman Administrator. And also, I don't think Mei Lee is here, but we have a new Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer for Institutional Impact, Ms. Mei Lee. Mei comes to us into this role after teaching actually entrepreneurship in our School of Architecture at RPI and from NYU, where she served as Vice Chancellor, and she spearheaded the development of NYU Shanghai, as well as Shanghai Tech University, where she was the inaugural dean of the School of Entrepreneurship and Management there. So brings a lot of great experience, and I'm really excited to have this new team complementing the team we already have here. So, as many of you know, RPI has been operating with a 10-year strategic plan, which we entitled the Rensselaer Plan 2024. However, we're at that 10-year point, and we are in the process of developing a new strategic plan as we enter our bicentennial next year. We've titled that strategic plan Rensselaer Forward. The plan will be organized around 5 key themes: education, research, translation, which means moving ideas from the campus out to have impact in the world, regional engagement, and a welcoming and inclusive community. We created a set of working groups for each of these 5 areas, and they've provided their final reports, which we have just provided to the community for feedback and input. Our intention is to take all that feedback and the 5 reports to formulate a final strategic plan document with the goal of sharing that early in our bicentennial year. So let me now talk about some internal operational issues. First, let me comment on our finances. Overall, our financial strategy is twofold. The first is to manage the Institute's resources carefully so that we don't get too far out over our skis. The second is to allocate resources in areas where we see what I would call investments to grow opportunities. I can provide several examples of the latter. The first is to grow our tenured and tenure-track faculty and our staff. When I held a Springtown meeting 6 months ago, I mentioned in that meeting that when I arrived at RPI, we were at about 80% of our historic size in terms of faculty and staff. This was due to adjustments made in the crossover period where RPI worked to get a better balance of debt to endowment, and also due to COVID. In both cases, RPI implemented necessary staff and faculty reductions, largely through attrition. It was painful, but it was needed from a financial perspective. As we recover from the pandemic, we have put together a 5-year financial plan with ambitious revenue growth goals to allow us to sustain those investments to grow. The areas of ambitious revenue growth are principally in professional education, research, and philanthropy. Our Invest to Grow strategy involves restoring faculty and staff ranks, focusing on hiring and institute advancement, pursuing major research opportunities such as CHIPS, and leaning in on Rensselaer at Work, which is our team in Hartford, who has really done an amazing job pivoting to an online learning provider. And those are just some of the examples. One other area of focus is addressing our deferred maintenance issues. Now, this is an area that is very familiar to me based on my experience tackling MIT's $2 billion deferred maintenance issue back in 2008. What I can tell you is it takes a long time and substantial resources, but you have to start. We are now exploring a gut renovation of one of our iconic original buildings that can be a home for much of our computing activities. Buildings like Ricketts, the 87 Gym, Amos, Eaton, and Lally are representative of some of the original buildings on this campus which are in desperate need of renovation. And the plan is to systematically start moving through the campus, renovating building by building. We want to get started on that, and with the support of our board, we're doing the investigation of this first wave with computing. This, of course, will be paced by our capacity to raise funds. Lastly, we are rebooting some core administrative services. When I did my listening tour, one of the things that I heard a lot about was concerns about just the challenges of doing the day-to-day work of the Institute. And so what we're working to do is to try and streamline our processes, implementing flexible work policies and others, all focused on making RPI a better place to live and work. We're also doing some restructuring. We recently announced that we are moving the student life and enrollment management functions into the Provost's office. And we created an Office of Strategic Alliances and Translation that is being led by Institute Professor of Chemical and Biological Engineering, Jonathan Dordak. The former move, that is combining student life and enrollment management with the Provost's office, I think is going to give us the opportunity to consider more holistically the learning experiences of our students. And the creation of the Strategic Alliance and Strategic Alliances and Translations Office is really to make RPI more nimble in pursuing large, complex relationships with some of the partners we're seeking to pursue, and to be agile in the way in which we move ideas from the campus out into the world. And I see John Dordick. John, do you want to stand up so that people can recognize you? So. I appreciate John taking on that role as someone who has experience of translating ideas off from our campus out to the world. I think he's perfectly suited with the team he's assembling to do this. All right, let me give you a few highlights about our FY23 financial results. I'm happy to say that the operating budget of the university was balanced as we closed the books on 23. Total revenues were below budget by about $4.2 million. Now, to put that in perspective, revenue for this university on an annual basis is approximately $440 million. So a $4.2 million shortfall on revenue represents about 1% of the operating revenue of the institution. The most significant variance in budget was a reduction in net tuition revenue. The budget was balanced by lower than expected budgeted expenses, as well as drawing from some reserves. We experienced a 10.7% positive return on the endowment, which now stands at $924.3 million. Due to market volatility in the prior year, our defined benefit pension payment was larger than we anticipated. So this fiscal year, we had to make a $17 million contribution to the defined benefit pension payment plan to keep it fully funded. And we funded that overage through cash reserves, not the operating budget. So that was probably the largest unexpected impact to the finances of the Institute. Now, I mentioned our endowment as being at $924.3 million. Our outstanding debt is $629.8 million, all long-term debt, which decreased by $24.5 million, which is simply reflective of continued principal repayments. The pension plan investments are at $233.4 million with a 9% return for the fiscal year, so slightly less than the endowment itself, which is what you typically see because of the ERISA restrictions on how you can invest pension funds. Year over year, our revenues grew by 2% while our expenses grew by 7%. That difference is accounted for through the invest to grow strategies, but also because of the large inflation experience we had, and which many of you are familiar with. As I mentioned, we went through this period of reduced expenses and we're working hard to invest to grow, but this is an area, frankly, where we have to keep a very close focus on our finances so that as we see things evolve, the effects of some of the global challenges we're seeing, inflation, we'll have to moderate the pace with which we're adjusting and growing. So let me talk now about some of our strategic initiatives. We continue to focus on strengthening some of our newer activities, such as the Freshwater Institute in Lake George and our newly created Center for Engineering and Precision Medicine in New York City. One area of focus for us since I started has been regional engagement, and I want to talk a little bit about why that is an area of focus. When Lynn and I first came to visit Troy as I was considering whether to take on the job at RPI, we were astonished by the progress in the city and this region. I'm sure that some of you experienced the same astonishment as you walk through Troy this weekend, particularly if you happen to see the farmers market. I'd say that during my 41 years at MIT, I witnessed the transformation of Kendall Square into one of the world's most important hubs for life sciences. And this was a direct result of the leadership of MIT and Harvard and the hospitals. I believe, and I'm here because I believe this, that the capital region of New York State is ripe for a similar transformation. And my conviction in stating that is even stronger now than it was the day I started as your president. And we are driving coalitions to make that happen. The federal government's new commitment of $52.7 billion to domestic semiconductor manufacturing, research and development, and workforce development under the CHIPS and Science Act of 2022 is an important, in fact, I would say transformational opportunity for this region. We already have one of the world's most important contract chip makers in our backyard, Global Foundries. In Albany Nanotech, just 7 miles from here, we have the premier microelectronics prototyping facility in the nation, if not the world. A nearly $20 billion facility, which is the only place, other than within the walls of TSMC, where you can generate the next generation of CMOS or silicon technology. It's right in our backyard. Every company that will push the advances in semiconductor technology must come to Albany to do it. Every company that makes the equipments and materials to advance the semiconductor industry under this $52 billion commitment must come to Albany. That's a massive opportunity for us. So we've worked with the research universities, RPI, SUNY, and Cornell, as well as the companies like IBM, Global Foundries, and Micron Technologies, which recently made a $100 billion commitment to bring manufacturing and memory technology to the capital, well, not to the capital region, to Syracuse, but it's only 2 hours away. And by the way, they're going to have to do most of the development in Albany Nanotech. Last month, in one of the first major CHIPS Act awards, the Department of Defense announced that the Northeast Regional Defense Technology Hub, or so-called NORDTech, will be one of only 8 innovations hubs that it is creating focused on lab-to-fab transitions, helping to prototype new innovations with potentially military use. I'm happy to say that of the 8, this region earned 1. RPI is one of the 5 core partners in NORDTech, alongside the State University of New York, Cornell, IBM, and the organization which owns Albany Nanotech, which is called New York Creates. Together, this team, which worked together, importantly, will receive $40 million in the first year to create the infrastructure and processes for NORDTech. And this, of the 8 awards that were made, our region, our proposal, NORDTech, received the highest funding level at $40 million of all 8 across the country. We're also in a new partnership with Micron Tel, the National Science Foundation, called Upwards Program. The program is bringing together 6 universities in the US and 5 universities in Japan, which is also trying to reestablish a domestic semiconductor manufacturing industry. Together, we'll focus on memory-centric research as well as curriculum development and finding ways to encourage women to enter the semiconductor field. The CHIPS Act also enabled the NSF's Future of Semiconductors, or FUSE program, which supports holistic co-design approaches to fundamental research and education. A very competitive program from the NSF, and I'm proud to say that an RPI professor, Daniel Gall, is the lead investigator on a project recently awarded out of this program in partnership with Cornell and Notre Dame. Importantly, we are also in the process of establishing a physical presence in Albany, New York at the Albany Nanotech facility. It is my belief that if you want to interact daily with the most influential people in the semiconductor industry and to help shape the national microelectronics agenda, that is the place to be. So I hope by the end of the calendar year, we've completed a lease for 6,000 square feet of space in that building so that we'll have researchers, graduate students, faculty, undergraduates working over there and also working here to help connect us to that ecosystem. But there's more. Workforce development is a key element of the CHIPS Act because talent will clearly be the limiting factor as these companies take those $52 billion and start building the facilities in Syracuse and elsewhere to advance semiconductor manufacturing. How do we fill those factories with talented workers? So we're working very hard on that. And what I would tell you, which is interesting, in as much as the semiconductor industry moved out of the United States over the past 30 years, at the same time, universities like RPI and MIT stopped being as active in research in silicon technology, stopped offering as many courses in silicon technology. And so while we face a challenge filling the labs and factories for these commercial entities that are going to advance semiconductors, we also are challenged with filling our faculty ranks and restoring our curriculum and bringing the students back. Now, the good news is on the students, they're as excited about this as they are about that. And they're flocking into the classrooms we can offer. But we have a secret weapon. And our secret weapon is we happen to be in Albany, in the capital region, where you have engineers and technicians who have worked in this industry for 30 and 40 years at places like IBM and Global Foundries. And through the genius of our leadership, like Shekhar Garde and Robert Hull, we've gotten those folks to come down and teach. So we've offered classes with lectures being offered by the industry experts, helping to refresh our curriculum. The first class we offered was a topic in microelectronics class, taught by a team of faculty from RPI and industry experts from Global Foundries. That class was so successful, I think it was 4 times oversubscribed from what we would have expected, that this year, 10 companies are participating in teaching that class. And we're even hiring onto our faculty as professors of practice some of these leading scientists and researchers in the region. It's a huge competitive advantage for us. No other place in the country, other than possibly Portland, Oregon, has that kind of concentration of talent that allows us to leapfrog and be able to offer the educational needs that are going to be needed both for academics, but for the industry. We're also working with our regional partners, SUNY and so on. One of the things I'm very proud of, and again, I give credit to Robert and Shekhar, RPI and Hudson Valley Community College have launched a Semiconductor Microelectronics Scholars Program. What is that, you might say? Well, it's a program for associate degrees students at HVCC designed to attract new students into the field and to create pathways for them to industry or further education. These students are mentored by RPI faculty and industry partners, and we believe this program can improve the diversity of students that we attract to this field, and we think it can be scaled using the Rensselaer at Work platform. And then we have what we celebrated yesterday. Further establishing our regional leadership and global leadership in all aspects of computing, yesterday we held a virtual groundbreaking for the IBM RPI Quantum Computational Center. RPI, as you've no doubt heard, will be the first university in the world to house an IBM Quantum System 1 on its campus. It's a huge moment for us. It's a big bet, but I believe it's a bet worth taking. In a few years' time, IBM will have developed a quantum computer with incredible performance. And what I hope is in the course of the next few years, because we'll have one of these quantum computers on our campus, students will come to it. Faculty will come to it. We'll explore how we can use it. We'll explore how we integrate quantum computing into our curriculum so that when those quantum computers are really performing at a high level, we're graduating the workforce. We have the educational materials. We know what research problems quantum computing can solve. I was asked by a reporter yesterday, why not just use the cloud? IBM puts quantum computing resources in the cloud. It's a perfectly legitimate question. It's a question I asked myself a lot as we were contemplating doing this. But the answer came out in Curtis Preem's remarks yesterday. What Curtis said was I was admitted to MIT and I was admitted to RPI. And I came to RPI because RPI had just installed an IBM computer. That's why he came. And then he went out and created, with 2 other people, NVIDIA. So I said to the reporter, if having a quantum computer on this campus means a bunch of Curtis Preems are going to come here and then go create things like NVIDIA, I'm happy we're getting it. So I'm really excited about that. So it'll be, of course, as you know, housed in the Voorhees Computer Center beneath 4 beautiful stained glass windows. It's just, of course, at RPI, we put computers in chapels because that's where we worship. But it's just really exciting. So I want to pivot a little bit and just talk a little bit about you. So as I mentioned, we've been on 18 cities, we've toured 18 cities over the course of the year. We wanted to do 19. We had to cancel Seattle, but we're going there Monday with the boot. I want 19 is important to me. I'm the 19th president. But I encouraged you all in my travels to share your hopes and concerns. And you did. And I heard things like worries about the student union. Some of you wanted to know my views on Greek life. Some expressed concerns about RPI's rankings. Some expressed concerns about free speech. And some felt that RPI only contacted them when we needed money. On the union, I did dig into this and asked several decades of former GMs and PUs and the former director of the union, Rick Hart, to join me in a meeting with the current and former GM and PU. And I will tell you that Rebecca and I meet with the GM and the PU and other student leaders, both at the undergraduate and graduate level, monthly to find out how they're doing. I think that WebEx that we had concluded that the state of the student management of the union is healthy. And I'm happy to engage you on these other topics if you wish during the Q&A. But I do appreciate you sharing with me your concerns because my communications to you would be tone deaf if I didn't know where you were at. Okay, let's shift and talk about the future and our bicentennial. All in all, this is shaping up to be a great 200th year for RPI. Now, I will say, and I mentioned this once before to someone, most organizations might take 3 years to plan a bicentennial, but we're RPI. We're doing it in 6 months. So the team is on overdrive, and this is the cake's being baked, all right? But it's really shaping up. And I know we're all looking forward to RPI's milestone birthday party in 2024. So please allow me to introduce some of what we are planning. So I think we're going to show slide 1. So first of all, we have developed this wonderful logo based on a Mobius strip. As you know, if you trace the surface of a Mobius strip, it has no ending or boundaries between inside and outside. So the Mobius strip is not only a wonderful symbol of RPI's longevity, but also of our effort, of our ethos in both research and education, which is multidisciplinary, collaborative, and flexible. And now that we have a beautiful Rensselaer logo with a Mobius strip, and I think we can go to slide 2, you'll see how this evolves. Ooh. Ah. If it runs too long, you may get seasick, but we'll be good. Okay, but you can wear it too. We're getting good at reveals. All of our homecoming and reunion registrants will receive a free, limited edition Bicentennial t-shirt. It's available at the festival or in the bookstore all weekend. After that, we'll release limited edition t-shirts that are events or milestone specific, so keep an eye out for those too. As we gear up to mark the 200th incredible years, we want you to be part of the celebration. So this is going to be an audience participation, not right now, but we have to figure out the tagline that goes along with this beautiful logo. And the team has come up with 2 choices, and we need you to vote. And I don't know how, I think we're going to push this out through the alumni channels so you'll get a link to where you can vote. But the choices of taglines, listen carefully, the choices of taglines are, first, memories to milestones, a 200-year celebration, that's one. Or foundations to future, a 200-year reflection. So those are your choices. Please vote, let us know, and we'll probably pick the winner. Or we might put our thumb on the scale. Voting is open now until October 19th on our webpage and social media channels. Can they vote more than once?
I'm from Chicago, yes.
Oh, okay. I'm from northeastern Pennsylvania, where you vote your horse. Okay, so we're launching a microsite highlighting 200 firsts across RPI's 200-year history, foundational RPI discoveries and innovations that have changed the world, including creating the first civil engineering curriculum and offering the first engineering degrees in the U.S. And there'll be a website that we'll push out so that you can connect to that. As we tell the world about RPI's amazing history, we hope all of you will contribute to that effort by sharing your own memories of RPI. We intend to create an RPI StoryCorps that will collect recordings of RPI stories from alumni, as well as our students, current students, parents, faculty, and staff. Keep an eye out for the launch of this effort in January 2024. Parties are, of course, also in order. Our Bicentennial Committee have been hard at work planning events and incorporating the bicentennial theme into cherished traditions such as the Mayor's Cup, the Winter Carnival, and GM Week. Our individual schools are also looking at creating their own events. Look out for a bicentennial lecture series, a Garnet D. Baltimore lecture series, and an event honoring Eddie Knowles, our longtime Vice President for Student Life, as well as a professional musician who spreads music and joy at RPI for many years, whom we lost during COVID. MPAC will have a special bicentennial exhibit in the Panorama Room. And finally, there will be a whole series of alumni events throughout the year celebrating our 200th birthday. And I certainly hope to see you there. So I would simply say, watch this space as we develop the plans. And so now, as I said at the beginning, I'm delighted to answer any easy questions. So if you could just raise your hand, and I'll try and, the lights are a little bright, but I'll call on people as the hands go up, unless no hands go up, which is also cool. Yeah. And if you could identify yourself, so we'll keep notes.
Hello, I'm Ralph Rio with the class of 71 and 72 graduate. First, let me thank you for the very frank and informative presentation. I really appreciate it and wholeheartedly support what you're doing. It's fabulous. Thank you. So this question is about remote learning. Mm-hmm. And there was a period of time recently where I personally thought it was going to be a big deal. I'm not sure it's a big deal anymore. Is any RPI doing anything in that regard?
Yeah,
Great
question. Thank you. Do you have a half hour? So you're right. I mean, it's interesting if you go back a decade to the MOOC era, and I think you know about the hype cycle where things go like this and then reality kicks in. I think we're coming out of the trough. When the MOOC revolution occurred, when people all of a sudden, holy cow, I can create a computer science class, 150,000 people can take the class with the same level of effort as I took to teach it to 100 people on campus. I think we've learned a lot in that period of time. For me personally, I did because I was co-chair of the board of a nonprofit for 8 years that did that with Harvard. What I can say, I want to share a couple things with you. One is, we have an enterprise in Hartford has had different names throughout its years, and some of you may be graduates or have degrees from the Hartford program. What's interesting about that, it was created in 1955. It was created when under a different name, but what United Technologies made a request to a number of universities, including MIT, as to whether or not they would develop a program for professional ed of United Technologies employees in Hartford. RPI won that. They were the first mover. In its peak, and to this day, we still own an 8-story building in downtown Hartford right across the street from a minor league baseball park. Massive property. In its peak, Hartford would have 2,000 people going into that building every night and weekend, receiving professional education for a variety of industries, not only United Technologies, but a lot of the defense sector industries in that region, as well as the insurance industry and finance. Here's the stunning fact. You all constitute about 110,000 living alumni today. RPI 110,000 living alumni. Hartford, since it was established in 1955, has awarded 25,000 degrees. So they've had a massive impact. But what happened in the past 10 years or so was the migration to online. And I would say that Hartford struggled to make that move. I'm happy to say that around 2019, we hired a new dean named Eric Kraus to head up that effort. And Eric has been taking them through the transformation into an online realm. And here's where I answer your question, which is that the challenge is you have to meet the learners where they are. And what I mean by that is being asynchronous, not necessarily being slave to classes start in September and end in December, but also supporting the learner from a distance. And so what Hartford has done, and we call them Rensselaer at Work because they're now serving an educational population that spans the country. They do what I call competency-based learning. So when you take a course from Rensselaer at Work, the way I like to say it is, there's only 2 grades you can get in that class, an A or an F. Why do I say that? Because it's competency-based. So at each step through the curriculum, you are tested to verify that you've mastered the element of the course that they're teaching before you move on. So that's one piece. And why is that important? Well, it's important because your customer is typically the employer of this learner. And the employer wants to be confident that the learner learned something. So C's, D's, B's, I don't know. A, okay. So this competency-based model is really important. And of course we want them to learn, right? But the other element of it is you have what I call academic Sherpas, which is that there are working professionals that coach you along through the course. They assess your learning outcomes. And if you didn't get it right, they coach you. And so I think they've got a great model. I think it can scale. I think it's responsive to what we learned over the last decade in online learning. And I think it's a great opportunity for RPI. More answer than you wanted, but there you go.
Thank you.
Back there.
My name is John Pfaff. I'm in the class of 71, and I am on the board of the Sigma Chi House Corporation. I'm also on the board of the Alumni Fraternity and Sorority Council, which is part of the RAA. I just wanted to tell you that within the next month, I'm going to write my first check to the RPI annual fund in many, many years. And I'm encouraging Sigma Chi's 900 living alumni to follow that example and get back from where I know our contributions are close to zero, to come back. And because of you, Marty, and what you've done and what you plan to do and showed us what your plans are for the future, that's why.
So it reminds me of a story. When I was at MIT, Charles Vest was the president, and they had a campaign kickoff, and he was standing up describing the campaign, and a trustee came up to the stage and in the middle of his speech and said, "Can I talk?" Okay. And this particular trustee, Keenan Sahin, announced that he was going to give MIT $40 million. Unbeknownst to the president. After, everybody was excited and things finally settled down, wisely Chuck walked to the microphone and said, "Does anybody else have something they want to say?" So I'm thinking about what you said, but no, I mean, I think you're testing the fence. You want to know what the new guy thinks about fraternities and sororities, and some of you heard me say this, but look, I think a healthy living environment is so vital to the success of our students, and that can take many shapes. And some of you know, Lynn and I Lynn went on some of them, but then she kind of dropped off. But went to every fraternity and sorority on campus that would let me in the building. I think I called it speed dating because we only spent 30 minutes there. And I can tell you, it was eye-opening. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's really interesting to see the diversity of living arrangements that we have through the fraternity and sorority system. And I'm also really pleased to say that with Peter Konworski, with Travis Apgar, and with Ethan, what's Ethan's last name? Stowe. You know, we've got a great team that's committed to helping. But I think there's several things I would say about fraternities and sororities. First of all, this is not your father's Oldsmobile. The drinking age was 18 when we were here. Not everybody had a phone and the ability to send pictures and videos out throughout the globe. We're in a different world. And so thinking about what is a healthy and vibrant living community is, I think, on our agenda. We have to think that through carefully. The second thing I would say is this has to be a partnership. And I think of it like co-parenting. If the parents aren't in alignment and the wheels come off with their child, nothing good happens. And so what that means is the first conversation you and I have when something bad happens at Sigma Chi can't be when that happens. It has to be an ongoing conversation, and I applaud you for being member of Alumni Fraternity and Sorority. And I love Roger Mike. Where are you, Roger? There you are. For the leadership he's provided in helping us get there. Now I'm gonna be brutally honest with you, because one of the things I know you kind of don't like is that we've set up a way for you to make funds to the university that go to the fraternity or sorority. And I know you don't like that we want to take 10% off the top. I'm sorry, but we need it. Ethan doesn't work for free. The team doesn't work for free. It really helps us support more robustly. So I ask you to think about that before you send me an email. But thanks for the comment. Yes, Justin. Recently got engaged.
Yes.
Do you want to introduce your fiance?
She's not here with us. She's enjoying the farmer's market. We're dividing and conquering the two most cool events happening right now.
There you go.
Justin Etzen, class of 18, grad class of 19. I was a GM in PU. And I just want to echo what you said about student governance. It really does feel like the union is back, and the union's in a really healthy spot. And it's thanks to folks. Where did he go? He teleports. He teleports, I'm telling you. Anyways, Dr. Potts, yourself, the leadership team, it's really been remarkable. And I, probably not to the same magnitude, but I also gave my first donation. And I'm very excited to do that regularly. And it's really great to see what you're doing to this university. So I've got one question.
Yeah.
What's true of RPI today that wasn't true when you were a student that you really like? And what was something that was true in some form when you were a student that maybe isn't today that you'd like to see either come back or take a new shape in your time here now?
Okay, so the second question's easy. I want to see the field house filled. For both men's and women's games, because I mentioned this in a town hall recently. Last year, the women went 0 for 6 before they had their first win. This year, 7 games in, they're undefeated. So what was the first question, Justin?
What was something that you've come back and found to be true today that wasn't true when you were here as a student that you really like?
Great question. It's probably best embodied by I persist, which is, I think what's different now is, we were collaborative, but I didn't think we had that system of peer-to-peer mentoring. So I Persist, for those of you that aren't aware of it, it's a program that started in science, actually is all in science, I think, where you take the core subjects like calc, physics, chemistry, And juniors and seniors volunteer their time. Now, I was told 10 hours a week. Does that sound about right, Kurt?
A little less than that.
Little less. Okay, 5? Okay, 5. They volunteer about 5 hours a week. A junior or senior will bring a cohort of maybe 10 freshmen or more that are taking that class, and we'll mentor them. We'll support them. Now, that's obviously helpful just in terms of, you know, the curricular advancement. But I think what's really important about it is that if I'm struggling as a freshman and going through that sort of moment of imposter syndrome, the fact that I could look at someone who's only 2 years or older than me, who just went through this and can say to me, I know what you're going through, I got through it, you can. That's different and it's phenomenal. Yes. Are you going to sing, Glenn?
Glenn Brown, member of the great class of 1954. I might add the class of champions.
I think I've heard that already.
The president is a very fast learner. What I wanted to tell you was that history reveals that no prior RPI class has celebrated a 70th anniversary on its own. They normally go into the 50-year club and they celebrate as a group. The class of 54 has been unique in many ways, and we are planning to have and to hold and to relish in the 70th anniversary in 2024 to help celebrate our 200th anniversary. We also hope to have a member of both the hockey and lacrosse teams that won national championships while we were in school present for our reunion. And with your pleasure, we hope you will join our class at that time to give a few words. Thank you.
It'd be my honor, and I want you to meet with the current teams and talk to them. But also, you know, we had Lloyd Bauer here last year, who was on the championship team. He just, and his son Dave brought him, and it was just a magic moment to have him in the president's box at the rink, because we also had somebody from the '85 championship team. So I think there's lots of things to celebrate in the Bicentennial, but that sounds terrific. Okay, class of '73, I see.
How could you tell? Dr. Ken Hoffman, really three-part question. First, as a physician, I'd like to know a little bit of what's going on in the world of science. We've talked a lot about engineering and computing, but as a physician that takes care of people, it'd be nice to know about the humanities being built for the technologists, because that's always been a major issue. And hopefully, we'll be able to see how things are going with the library and other things like that. Thank you.
Right, absolutely, thank you. And I think one of the things I would say there is what's interesting with some of the things, when you think about like the Freshwater Institute or the Center for Engineering Precision Medicine, those are really gonna be activities that bring multiple disciplines. And you know, we have activities down in Brooklyn that are partnerships between architecture and other schools. So, but I absolutely agree. I mean, bringing cross-disciplinary things, and one of the things we can commit to perhaps in future State of the Institute addresses is bringing some of the leaders up to share with you what's going on in each of the schools. And we'll have the academic showcases that are also an opportunity, but thanks. I wanna make sure I don't miss, there's a hand, because it's hard for me to see in the balcony, but I see a hand up there, so let's try and move it around a little bit.
I'd like to mention, I came to RPI from a different country. And one thing that surprised me a lot when I came was the emphasis on leadership and communications, because it wasn't common around the world. Since then, I noticed that entrepreneurship and leadership are closely related. Being first is part of being a leader. And I'd like to see what Marty thinks and how to develop more being first, more leadership, and more emphasis on leading from the front in this university.
Well, thanks for the question. The one thing I would say is that, first of all, obviously the Lally School is an important player in that, and we are just now in the midst of search for the new dean, and I think it's a really important moment for that school. The school is named, and it has endowment, so that it has resources to help drive this. So we're excited to think about a new dean that'll really shape our thinking for that school and connect it. You mentioned entrepreneurship, and I think that's very much a part of this, and that's part of what we have in John Dordick's remit. I can tell you that we took the Board of Trustees on Thursday afternoon, and we went into downtown Troy to a building called Tech Valley Center of Gravity. And it turns out that in that square area, what we learned is there are between 60 and 70 startups in downtown Troy in that small cluster. That didn't exist when I was here. And that's really an opportunity for our institution to lean in and engage and help accelerate that. And that will be a focus. But thanks for the question. Yeah. If I talk long, this might be the last question.
Well, then I'm going to give you a hard one. James Warnicke, class of 1974. First of all, you 1954 guys, I can check with the rest of the reunion committee, but maybe you could join us for the 50th dinner next year.
He's taking it under advisement.
My question has to do with the arch.
Yeah.
I heard about it for years. Really don't know a whole lot about it, but I know there was some controversy with it, and I was wondering what your plans were going to be to continue it or to modify it in some way.
Both. So there were a lot of questions that came up about Arch, and what struck me in the past year was how many times unsolicited a parent or an employer or a student would share with me what a transformative experience Arch was for them. And the way I think about it is that it's this one opportunity. First of all, it really forces our students to figure out how to go out there and get an opportunity, how to interview, how to seek that thing. And I think driving that is a good thing, and driving it before they're actually going out and doing that for real when they graduate is a good thing. So that's one thing I would say, and that's one of the things we hear from parents. My child never would have developed that skill set to go out and find that opportunity had you not compelled him or her. The other thing that's interesting at a place like RPI is, by definition, while all the students we admitted were likely top of their class before they got here, by definition, half of them will be at the bottom half of their class when they're here. And so there's a confidence hit that one takes at a place like RPI because of that. And what we hear from students, and I heard it as recently as a few months ago in Austin, Texas, is they'll say, I just met with my boss on my Archaway after being there for 4 weeks, and I'm paraphrasing, but my boss said he was a little bit dumbfounded because the project he gave me, he anticipated me to take the full 14 weeks or 15 weeks that I was going to be there, and I got it done in 3. So, when you're amongst a lot of people that perform really, really well in the bubble called RPI, you don't always realize how good you actually are. And what better opportunity to give them that confidence boost than their final year here, so we can encourage them to think big and be proud of what they know and be emboldened to pursue things. So I think there's lots of good about it. What we've also learned, though, is that there are challenges in terms of helping them get to that point, helping them find those opportunities, supporting them along the way, delivering meaningful experiences in the summer. And what we've been doing is spending a lot of time with student life, with the provost's office, with the academic deans, to really say, let's take this apart and figure out what are the things we need to fix to make it even more meaningful. I will say that Arch isn't going to be for everybody. If you're an athlete and your support straddles 2 semesters, Arch doesn't work. If you're an athlete and your coaches and you really want to use the off season on campus, it may not work for you. So we're trying to become more flexible, but also to create more of a pull, that people realize, students realize that Arch can be an amazing opportunity for them, but they've got to engage, they've got to lean in, and we've got to support them in that. So we're not getting rid of it. We're committed to making it better.